Today we're taking a look at high quality Dead Space remake gameplay. Recently I was invited to see a presentation with the developers and some gameplay behind the scenes, and we're going to be taking a look at that now and talking about what's new with the game and what to expect to someone who might be interested in picking this up. So back in 2008 Dead Space launched, and this was a brand new take on survival horror games developed by Visceral Games, and it was really something special at the time. And since that point we've seen plenty of other games, we've seen animated movies, comics, novels, merchandise. The franchise has a big cult following. Skip to the present and we've got a from the ground remake on the cards, and this is releasing January 27th of next year. And the developers really went into why they built this and everything that's new and exciting about it. So they wanted to be faithful to the original game and stick to its horror roots, and they had three important pillars that they were going to stick with: the immersion of the game, the setting, and the strategic action. And they wanted to hold on to the fact that there were very few cutscenes in the game and you're on the edge of your seat from start to finish. You never want to let go of the controller, and it's just intense all the way through. And they're preserving that with this remake. So we've got that Event Horizon style setting still. It looks fantastic, I have to say. They've got the strategic action from the first game. And what they mean by that is that shooting a monster in the face is no longer enough. So you've got to think about the dismemberment. That was one of the big gameplay mechanics of the original game, and that is still here. But it's been enhanced slightly, and we'll talk about that a bit later on in the video. So Motive, who are developing this, wanted to stay true to the original material. So that meant that they've respected the vision of the original game, and it's been fully rebuilt on the Frostbite engine, and it's for Generation 5 and PC only. That means that you can't play this on an Xbox One or a PS4. It's only for PS5, Series XS and PC. And there's a ton of new assets here, sounds, narrative enrichments, again we'll go into that soon, and new activities where you'll learn more about the other characters in the game and the journeys that they take and how they got there. So in terms of how they've brought the horror back into this, they built a new system called the Alive system. And in the game you play as Isaac Clarke. I'm sure you guys know this if you've played the original. And they say that in the remake he is more human than ever. So you can hear his heartbeat, you can hear his breathing, his exertion, and that's all based on the stress levels that he's feeling to give you feedback in real time as a player on Isaac's mental, emotional, and physical state. And that will inform you on how to play the game. And within that, they've built a new systemic horror system. And this is a new feature called the Intensity Director. The way they described it, it kind of reminds me a bit of the AI director that they had in the original Left 4 Dead. And this is like a new encounter and spawning system, which will dynamically adjust what shows up in your game in front of Isaac Clarke's path. So it can choose which necromorphs to spawn, how they choose to attack. It can choose to affect the environment around you, like the lights, the smoke, particle effects, even sounds at times. And I think this will also add a bit of replayability to the game. And the system is mainly used for when you're revisiting areas, for any side content, or any time that you as a player are just exploring the vast corridors of the Ishimura. And that gets me on to the next thing that they talked about: unbroken immersion. So the Ishimura, where you spend, I think it's the entire game, that massive ship is walkable. You can do the whole thing. It's fully explorable from end to end with no loading, no interruptions, and the whole game is played in one sequence shot. So if you think about how God of War was, where there's a camera following you as you play the game, that moves around based on what you do with the analog stick or with the mouse. But then whenever there's a cutscene, it kind of slides into the cutscene without any cuts. So it would appear that the whole game is one continuous shot. Very cool. Must have been a pain in the ass to make that, but according to them, they've pulled it off. They've also added another pillar, they said, to the game, and that's injecting creativity into the gameplay. And that will enable the player to generate some unique, gruesome game stories, reinforcing the ability to control the environmental systems of the Ishimura. So you've got some control of the ship, and that's stuff like the lighting, the vacuums, the gravity. I imagine there'll be more gameplay opportunities with physics now that technology's moved on a lot since that 2008 release. Frostbite's got proper physics in, so maybe a bit of destruction stuff. We'll have to wait and see. So the dismemberment, if you played the original, you know how cool that was. And in here, they say that it's been improved. Headshots will barely slow the enemies down. And that means that strategic severings of limbs when you're under pressure is a necessity for survival. I remember there was like a thing that you could use to put the enemies in stasis and then carefully pick off the limbs depending on which necromorph you were going up against. That kind of gameplay is back here. As I said, they mentioned that it's been improved too. And they've got this new peeling system on the monsters that you'll fight. So the monsters have all sorts of different layers on them, and as you shoot them in different areas, bits of flesh, tendons, that'll all be coming off, bones are going to break, things are going to tear and shatter in shocking new ways. And they said that that's adding a whole layer of precision and depth into the combat for more gameplay opportunities and better synergy with whatever weapon you choose to use. They also mentioned that they've taken a community first approach with developing this game, where players were at the center. Apparently early in the conception of the Dead Space remake, they created a community council, and this was composed of hardcore Dead Space fans, and they gave them full transparency, showing them ideas and announcements that they were proposing, gameplay mechanics, and they had ongoing feedback from that group, giving them access to the game from the get-go. And it's quite interesting to me hearing that, because I've been involved in a few similar things for other games, a bit of Battlefield, a bit of Call of Duty, other things that I can't really talk about. And usually they don't begin those things in the concept stage. So even though you might give them feedback and the developers decide, oh, that's bad feedback, let's ignore it, or that's good feedback, we should act on it, typically it's too late in the process to make any significant changes. So it seems like that they got this council on board, hardcore fans, right from the start, which is cool. And of course, they've also been quite transparent in a public sense with the gaming community as a whole, because if you remember, after they announced this, they started doing work in progress streams where they would show footage of the game. There was a load of grayed out levels, unfinished animations, models, but they were always transparent, saying, hey, this is work in progress, this is what we're building, sharing that content. And they also received a ton of feedback from fans and gamers publicly based on the stuff that they just put out there for everyone to see. It's a different style of developing the game, and pretty cool to see that from a AAA studio. You don't really get that level of optics on work in progress titles, but they did it here. And because of how early they showed it, they acted on it, and they changed things for the better, they said. Wrapping things up, they mentioned that side quests are a new thing they've added. They're a big deal in the game. There's new puzzles, there's new voice acting, gameplay mechanics, and also new weapon alt fires. But they didn't go into too much detail about what all of those were. I'm sure they want to keep some stuff secret for the game when it releases. And also the remake is aimed at returning players, so if they played the original game and they're familiar with it, they'll have a good time here, enjoy those new systems and graphics, environments. But also for people who haven't ever played a Dead Space game, they want it to feel like a new AAA polished title. All in all, looking pretty good so far. I'm excited for this. Do let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Thank you for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, leave a like. If you didn't, a dislike. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.